Black people like watermelon and fried chicken. Am I the only one who thought these stereotypes were harmless jokes? You know, the kind of thing you hear at a family gathering or see in an old movie, and maybe you chuckle uncomfortably but you figure, it's just a joke. For a long time, I believed that. I thought they were just oversimplified, maybe a little lazy, but ultimately, not a big deal. Stick around till the end to find out the truth. But here's the spoiler. They're not. Not even close. Stereotypes are more than just bad jokes or outdated ideas. They are deeply ingrained shortcuts in our thinking that have real, measurable, and often devastating consequences for people's lives. They shape how we see the world, and more importantly, how we treat each other. So let's break down what they are, where they come from, and what we can actually do to stop them. At its most basic level, a stereotype is a cognitive shortcut. Our brains are wired to categorize information to make sense of a complex world. It's a natural human tendency. It's faster to lump things into simple boxes than to process every single detail of every person we meet. So, we create simplified stories and overgeneralized beliefs about entire groups of people. The problem is, these stories are almost always incomplete, inaccurate, and deeply unfair. They erase individuality and replace it with a one-dimensional caricature. So, where do these faulty stories come from? Many have dark and deliberate origins. Some of the most persistent and damaging stereotypes were born from colonial myths and propaganda, created specifically to justify oppression and exploitation by painting entire populations as inferior, uncivilized, or dangerous. These weren't accidental, they were tools of power. Others are amplified by biased media. For decades, movies, news reports, and television shows have often relied on lazy, stereotypical tropes to tell stories, which reinforces those ideas in the public consciousness. When you only see a certain group of people portrayed in one specific way, as the villain, the sidekick, the punchline, it's easy to start believing that's all they are. Shockingly, some stereotypes were even propped up by warped, discredited science. Fields like eugenics and phrenology were used to create a false biological basis for prejudice, lending a veneer of scientific legitimacy to racist and discriminatory ideas that still echo in subtle ways today. And sometimes, they simply grow from a fear of the unknown, a fear of groups seen as other. When we don't have genuine contact or understanding of a community, we fill in the blanks with assumptions, and those assumptions are often negative, fueled by the other sources we've just discussed. The harm of stereotypes operates on multiple levels. On an individual level, it can lead to discrimination in hiring, housing, and even healthcare. Studies have shown that identical resumes get different callback rates based on the perceived ethnicity of the name. On an interpersonal level, it creates prejudice, mistrust, and social division, making genuine connection impossible. And on an institutional level, stereotypes become embedded in policies and practices, leading to systemic inequality in our justice system, education, and beyond. These stereotypes range from the seemingly casual, like associating black people with watermelon, a trope with a deeply racist history designed to paint newly freed slaves as simple-minded and unfit for freedom. It was a deliberate caricature used to justify stripping them of their rights. They also include supposedly positive lies, like the model minority myth applied to Asians. While it may sound like a compliment, this stereotype is incredibly damaging. It erases the diversity and struggles within Asian communities, pits minority groups against each other, and places immense pressure on individuals to conform to an impossible standard of success. It also conveniently ignores systemic barriers by suggesting success is purely a matter of cultural traits. We also see deeply demeaning tropes about indigenous communities, which often reduce diverse sovereign nations to monolithic historical caricatures, ignoring their contemporary lives, contributions, and the systemic challenges they face. This erasure from the present day is a form of ongoing discrimination. Similarly, harmful and limiting tropes about Latino communities often ignore the vast diversity of cultures, nationalities, and experiences, boiling them down to a few narrow, inaccurate representations in media and public perception. This flattens hundreds of distinct cultures into one inaccurate monolith. And dangerous, demeaning tropes about Middle Eastern communities frequently conflate a vast and diverse region with a single religion or political ideology, fueling xenophobia and discrimination. This has real-world consequences, from hate crimes to biased foreign policy. And this is just a handful of examples. These harmful shortcuts exist for countless other communities, based on race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, and more. Each one carries a weight of history and causes real harm. Let's look at a quick scenario. In a classroom, a teacher praises a student of Asian descent for acing a math test, saying, "Of course you did well, you're a natural at this." This is the model minority myth in action. The consequence: it puts unfair pressure on the student and dismisses their hard work as just a product of their race. A better response would be to praise the individual effort. "You worked really hard for this and it paid off. Great job." Or consider a healthcare setting. A black woman reports severe pain, but her doctor, influenced by a false and racist stereotype that black people have a higher pain tolerance, downplays her symptoms. The consequence is dangerous. Her condition goes undertreated. This is a documented phenomenon with life-threatening results. A better response is to listen, believe, and treat the patient's reported symptoms with the seriousness they deserve. In the workplace, a black woman asserts a strong, data-backed opinion in a meeting. A male colleague calls her aggressive or emotional, a common stereotype used to penalize women, and especially women of color, for exhibiting the same leadership qualities that are praised in men. The consequence is that her valid point is dismissed and she may be less likely to speak up in the future. A better response is to engage with the idea itself. That's a strong point. Can you walk us through your data? Realizing how much stereotypes affect us can feel overwhelming, but the fix isn't guilt, it's action. We all have a role to play in dismantling them. First, learn real histories. The stereotypes we see today didn't appear out of thin air. Understand their origins, read books, watch documentaries, and listen to podcasts from the communities that have been stereotyped. Don't just learn about their trauma, learn about their art, their innovations, and their joy. Understanding the why behind a myth is the first step to dismantling it. Second, diversify who tells the stories. Pay attention to the media you consume. Are the creators all from the same background? Actively seek out and support creators, authors, filmmakers, journalists from a wide range of communities. When people get to tell their own stories, the narrative naturally becomes richer, more complex, and more true. This is how we replace caricature with character. Third, and this can be the hardest part, challenge stereotypes when you hear them. It doesn't have to be a big confrontation. You can use a simple framework: hear, pause, ask, and reframe. Let's practice. Imagine you hear someone say, "I'm not surprised she's the boss, she's so bossy." First, you hear the stereotype: a black woman in charge is bossy, not a leader. Now, pause, take a breath. Don't react with anger. The goal is to open a door, not slam it shut. Next, ask a clarifying question. This invites reflection instead of defensiveness. You could say, "What do you mean by bossy?" Or, "That's interesting. Would you use that word if a white man acted the same way?" This gently holds up a mirror to the bias. Finally, reframe it. Offer an alternative perspective. "It sounds to me like she's just being decisive and a strong leader." This simple process can interrupt the stereotype in the moment and plant a seed of doubt about the assumption. And fourth, push for change on a larger scale. Advocate for inclusive curricula in schools and diverse hiring practices in workplaces and media organizations. Ask your local library to feature more diverse authors. Support businesses that are committed to equity. When our institutions reflect the true diversity of our society, it helps dismantle stereotypes from the top down. Remember, these small conversations and individual actions really do add up. Every time you choose to learn more, every time you support a diverse creator, and every time you gently challenge a harmful assumption, you are doing the work. You are helping to call out the myth, and most importantly, you are replacing that flat, one-dimensional stereotype with the complex, unique, and undeniable reality of a person. And that is how we stop a stereotype from becoming someone's fate. Here are some quick, science-backed tools you can use to unlearn stereotypes in your daily life. First, use stereotype replacement. When you notice a biased thought, consciously label it as a stereotype, and then swap it with a specific, accurate fact about the person or situation. Second, individuate. Before making a judgment, ask yourself 2 specific questions about that person's unique story or qualities. Third, try perspective taking. For just 10 seconds, imagine their day. their responsibilities, and the pressures they might be facing. And fourth, use counter-stereotypic imaging. Actively recall 2 examples of people who defy the stereotype you just encountered. In practice, this looks like saying, in the workplace, let's evaluate the idea, not the delivery. At school, your effort and strategy really drove that result. Nice work. With family, I know that joke is common, but it can be harmful. Here's why. And online, do you have sources for that? Here are some balanced reads from within that community. Let's clear up some common misconceptions. Free speech versus impact. You have the right to say something, but others have the right to explain its harmful impact. Intent isn't a magic shield. Good intentions can still cause harm. The key is to listen, learn, and adjust your behavior. And so-called positive stereotypes. They still flatten people into categories and add immense pressure, limiting their full humanity. To make this a habit, set if-then plans. For example, if I hear a stereotype, then I will ask a clarifying question. Try tracking 1 bias interruption per day for 30 days, and be open to growth. Invite feedback from people you trust. If I miss something or say the wrong thing, please tell me. I want to learn and fix it. Small, consistent actions are what change a culture. Start today, share what you learn, and make space for everyone's full story to be seen and heard.